This video contains footage from an interview from Good Morning Britain. I make no claims of ownership of this footage, and I'm simply reviewing and criticising it under fair use. There, YouTube, I said it. Release my fucking video, please.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. And asexuals, and bigenders, and two-spirit, and Z's. Welcome, and thank you again for joining me. That is, if you've decided to join me again. So today is something I've wanted to do for quite a long time. I've just never really had the balls to do it. Or maybe I should say I've had too many balls to do it. As a mammal of moderate intelligence and a man of science, there's been some social changes in the last few years that have confused me. Yes, I am a straight white male, so what the fuck do I know about anything? I should just throw myself off a bridge, but I don't want to do that just yet, so I figured I'd try and learn to fit in. So today I'm going to be looking at the world of the 100 genders, I suppose, if that's what you want to call it. The non-binary... Should I? The non-binary, if that makes it easier to follow. Today I'm just going to sit here with you in real time and do my research and come to my own conclusion. I'm going to be looking at some information you can find online and some media I found on the TV. Why should you listen to me? Well, you shouldn't. I am just a straight white man trying to learn how to understand all of this. So if you're in the same position, join me on the journey and let's see what we discover. So the first thing I wanted to do was simply sit down and have a look at this new list of, I don't want to just say genders because there's other terms in there that I don't think are specifically meant to be genders, just gender specific words, I guess.
Just as a little aside here, whilst editing the video I stumbled upon more lists of genders which are pretty wild. So wild in fact I was convinced that the list was just fabricated by some right-wing provocateur who was laughing his ass off as he wrote this and slipped it into an LGBTQ forum and watched his baby grow. Basically, I figured this was the ultimate bait. Also, I only really found this type of list on personal blog pages like Tumblr, which isn't exactly where you go for your legitimate information if you're in any way educated. It also didn't seem to be backed up by any legitimate people either. Either way, I'm going to completely disregard this list as it makes it almost impossible to form any sort of coherent argument for this cause.
The list that I found, which seems to be on some LGBTQ websites and forums and stuff, so they seem to agree with this list. They haven't rejected this list. To help you make sense of the alphabet soup and be as respectful and accurate as possible when using identifying language. Now this seems complicated so far, even for like a relatively well-educated person like me. By that I mean I have a degree. I'm not saying I was educated in Harvard or anything. From what I saw on the TV today, and of course that does not make it fact, someone said they were trying to roll this kind of thing out in schools before long, trying to teach really quite young kids how to understand other people's genders and how to go about talking to them, and that there are the countless amount of genders. And I say countless not as a disrespectful term, but it's factual. Let's just read through the first few and see if we can come to any sort of sense. So first on the list we have agender, a person with no or very little connection to the traditional system of gender, sometimes called gender neutral, gender neutral, or genderless. I can get behind that as a term. That makes scientific sense to me, at least the description of the word does. If you are a something, it's generally you are not that. Okay, so far not too bad. Androgyne, a gender expression that has elements of both masculine and femininity. Masculinity and femininity. That makes sense to me still. The word androgyne, I get it. Androgynous, not sure, mix of both kind of thing. I can get behind that so far. Asexual, adjective. Experiencing little or no sexual attraction to others. That makes sense to me, that's fine. Bigender, a person who fluctuates between traditionally women and men gender-based behaviour and identities. Identifying with two genders, or sometimes identifying with either man or women, as well as a third different gender. So that's bigender. So again, in terms of the English, I can make sense of it. In terms of the science, you're losing me now. Gender identity, gender neutral, gender non-conforming, gender queer. Intersex, term for a combination of chromosomes, gonads, hormones, internal sex organs, and genitals that differs from the two expected patterns of male or female, formerly known as hermaphrodite. But these terms are now outdated or derogatory. Is that true? Is the word hermaphrodite actually seen as derogatory nowadays, or is that just how the non-binary folk have put a spin on it? If you know the answer to that, please let me know. Two-spirit is an umbrella term traditionally within Native American communities to recognize individuals who possess qualities or fulfill roles of both feminine and masculine gender. So that's the same as androgyne then. Except you've mentioned Native Americans for some reason. What the fuck is going on? Okay, so I've flicked through most of that list, and from what I can tell, only about 5 or 6 of them would actually denote a kind of gender. Basically, you're either one or the other, one and the other, one and the other at the same time, one and the other at different times, and then you are neither. So that's about 4 or 5 different genders if you want to pigeonhole that term. There aren't actually 50, 100, 200 genders. A lot of these are just telling me what words mean. A lot of them are sexualities. A lot of these are just being attracted to certain people or certain things in certain ways. That doesn't determine your gender in any way. That determines your sexuality. If I suddenly became attracted to men, that would make me gay. That would change my sexuality. That wouldn't suddenly change my gender to a masculine, attracted man. That doesn't need its own word. I mean, it has its own word. It's called being gay, being a homosexual. These are all sexualities. They're still women. They're still men. Nothing changes there. So far, my research has done nothing but confuse me further, I guess. Maybe it shines some light on some things, though. I would imagine most people who want to make fun of these people and, just stick the knife in, they want to believe there are 100 made-up genders by these people, but I don't really think there are. There's maybe half a dozen. But when you're making fun of someone, it's much easier to use the more ridiculous number, isn't it? Why not 1,000 genders? Why not 1,000,000 genders? Why not 7 billion genders?
In fact, I would go as far as to say there aren't 100 genders. There are maybe 7 billion unique genders, one for every single individual on the planet.
I believe these people are just taking, who you are, just kind of your spirit, your likes, your kind of who you are as a person, and then they're trying to mold that into your gender for some reason, which just makes no sense at all. I spend most of the day being sad. Would that make me melancholy gender? No, it just makes me a sad little man. Now, I just want to quickly mention at this point that I, as much as I'm learning about the non-binary side of the LGBTQ+, one thing that doesn't confuse me is binary transgender. I am all for and completely behind any binary transgender person. I completely believe in gender dysphoria, if that's the term that is presently accepted. I believe it is. There's a really basic description of that, coming from, cis white man here. Gender dysphoria is essentially when you, let's break it down in really layman terms here, when you are born a male or in a male body, but you genuinely feel like you are a female. You have a female brain, if you want to put it that way. Do you know what I mean? You are a female person, but in a man's body. That would essentially be gender dysphoria, which I can imagine is an incredibly uncomfortable thing. I mean, it's easy to just kind of, mock these people and say, whatever, you're full of shit. Maybe you just need some fucking mental help or something. I hear a lot of people say that. Yeah, like, gender dysmorphia is a thing. And I am all behind those people getting that help. It is not an easy thing to do. It is a long, painful, stressful, expensive, drawn out process. And that's just to get the permission to begin to actually change your gender as well. But yeah, I can only imagine what that must feel like being trapped in a box and just knowing that you can never get out, and nobody outside the box understands why you're upset about being trapped inside this box. It must be an incredibly lonely and just fucking horrible thing to go through. So yeah, more power to you. Go binary trans people. The reason I bring that up is because in the video we're about to watch, there is a binary transgender woman as a guest, as well as the non-binary guy. I think he goes as male. I'm honestly not sure. We'll find out. Who is there to try and explain to Piers Morgan how there are multiple genders, which, as you can imagine, doesn't go well. But yeah, before heading into the video, I'm definitely at the point at the minute where they seem to be taking people's identities, taking people's likes and things they enjoy, and even taking people's sexualities, and for whatever reason, trying to say that that is now their gender. I don't understand why, though. It just makes no sense. Why does your gender have to be so specific? Okay, so now we're actually going to look at the Good Morning Britain interview. That's it. And this does involve Piers Morgan. Now let me just get this out of the way early. I can't stand Piers Morgan. He's a fucking prat. Sometimes he says the right things and gets a bit of a kind of cheer, but most of the time he's just kind of bludgeoning people about the head with his kind of opinion stick. That's how Piers Morgan works, you see. He seems very unwilling to take anybody's opinion on board. He has his opinion, and he will bash you about the head with his opinion until a result comes. It's really divided. Half the time people are just like, this guy's a fucking arsehole. And then half the time people are like, he's kind of saying what everyone else is thinking. And I'm not talking about gender or anything in particular here. I'm just talking generally the Piers Morgan saga. But personally, he could definitely use some work on how he talks to people. To discuss something with someone, you have to be open-minded, whether you agree with that person or not, whether you think what that person's saying is even possible or not. That's besides the point. You don't just bat them about the head with your noise stick, do you know what I mean? Like, let them talk, let them say what they have to say, so other people who are watching can form their own opinions. That's kind of what you're meant to do in a discussion, Piers. Modesty is kind of crucial when you're discussing something with someone. Having a massive glowing pride on is not how you win people over when you're trying to be a host, someone who's trying to discuss things, a critic. So yeah, let's have a look, I guess. Let's get right in on it.
You are transgender.
I transitioned from male to female, but I've never referred to myself as transgender, and if I did, I think my friends would go ballistic. My opinion is there are two genders, male and female.
Kill her, get her off the stage, burn her at the stake. She's a fucking idiot, she's a bigot, she's a right-wing, MAGA hat-wearing fucking Nazi. Interesting. So, the first question asked to Nicole, the transgender lady, which even she doesn't like that term being used. She would like people to just call her a lady, which is what I'm sure 99.9% of binary transgender people would prefer. They don't transition to become a transgender person. They transition because they want to be the other sex. Do you know what I mean? They feel like they are a man, or they feel like they are a woman. They want to be addressed as such. But that's not the point here. The point is that she wants nothing to do with these non-binary people. And the first question she was asked was, so you are transgender? And then straight away she's like, actually, I prefer if you just addressed me as a woman. Like, I went through all this shit for this many years. It cost me this much money and this much mental trauma to get to the point where I am. I would much prefer to just be addressed as a woman, which is completely understandable. But yeah, the funny part is that she instantly tries to separate herself from these non-binary folk, which is something that I've always kind of wondered. Your binary trans people have been around for fucking millennia. But these non-binary folk, it's a very modern, it's a very new thing.
You can do the research into the history of that point yourself, but even just as a basic example, I've compared the interest over time on Google Trends between the words transgender and non-binary in the last 15 years. And as you can see, the term non-binary was seldom even mentioned online until 2015. Now, I'm not saying this is evidence that non-binary people don't exist, but it is to say it was conceptualized very recently.
So immediately you've got someone who you would expect would be part of this group, part of the LBGT plus Q, but immediately she's trying to separate herself from those, which is very interesting.
Male. Sometimes you're not lucky enough to be born into the right one, so you transition into the one that you suit the most.
Which seems to me eminently sensible, and I have complete respect for people that do that. It's not an easy process, physically, psychologically, emotionally, or any of those things. I salute you for your common sense.
So yeah, she's basically finalising what I've just said, and now Piers Morgan's jumping in with essentially what I was saying also, if not in a more kind of flippant and probably offensive way. Like, yeah, I get it, right? I get what you're doing. I get it. It's him.
Now, let's bring you into this equation.
Benjamin,
You think it is
How
right.
do you identify?
I'm a man, that's right. So,
And gender, what are you?
I'm a cisgendered man.
What
does that
this mean?
So that means if you were born a woman, and therefore you still identify as a woman, so you're a cisgendered woman, I would say.
And that's because of my physical...
That's because
femaleness.
you identify with how you.
What am I?
Then, of course, we move on to Benjamin Butterworth, who, in my opinion, immediately fucks up. He is asked what gender he is, and he says he is a man. He should have already preemptively said, I am a cis male. But he didn't. He said, well, I'm a man, obviously, forgetting the argument he was about to make. Then, of course, Piers jumps on that, forces him to explain what he is. He says he's a cis man, cisgendered, or however he spins it that time. Basically, it's a bloke. Benjamin is a bloke. As soon as the term cis was introduced, he was asked to explain what that means, which he does. He explains what his usage of the term cis means, which, again, to put it into layman terms, basically means if you were cis male, it means you were born male. Your gender was male. You had a cock. When you came out of the womb, you were a cis male. But then, almost immediately, getting into the interview, Piers decides to have his first little fucking elbow to the rib. He deliberately goads Benjamin into telling him he is a cis male, just so he could be like, bitch, I'm just male, all right?
What am I?
Originally. Well, I assume you're a cisgendered
I'm not
man,
a cis
Piers,
anything,
if
mate.
if I may assume.
I'm not a cis anything.
Well,
I'm just a man.
Well, no, but you're a cisgendered man.
No, I'm not a
because-
cisgendered anything.
But hang on.
What does cis mean?
Well, that means that you were born the way that you identify
No,
now.
I'm just born a man.
But someone who transitions.
Why are you
to be a
insisting
man-
on calling me something I'm not?
See, at this point, even I'm getting a bit pissed off with Piers Morgan. It's like, we haven't even got onto the kind of extreme shit yet, and he's already just being fucking contrary. Do you know what I mean? He just wants to bicker with this kid.
Well, you can refer to yourself as just a man if you like.
Fuck you! I'm not a fucking cis anything. I'm a fucking man. Just a normal man. A male, manly man. I reject your idea of reality. Fuck you! All Piers Morgan is doing at this point is showing his lack of ability to debate someone healthily. He's not even letting the guy get his explanation out for what he's trying to explain. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if someone is wrong, you have to let them fully explain everything before you decide that is wrong. Piers isn't even letting him get to that part. He's just basically shutting him down and saying, "Hat on, have on something you've said I don't agree with, so fuck you and your glasses, you prick.
But I think most people identify as male or female, man or woman.
That's right. The vast majority of people. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other people who identify differently.
There are 100
lots of other
different
identities.
genders on this BBC list, apparently, right? One of them is two-spirit person, polygender, pangender, neutroids, intergender.
I have to say...
And then you can just about see off to the side of the camera there, is it Suzanne Reid? I think that's Suzanne Reid. I'm really bad at this. I don't watch Good Morning Britain, as you can tell. As Piers is listing off some of these genders that I was just looking at earlier, Suzanne kind of side-eyes the trans lady. I've already forgotten everyone's names. That's just part of the way my brain works. I'll refer to her as the trans lady. She'd probably be offended by that, but just for the sake of this video, it makes sense in terms of context. I mean, no offence to you, madam. So Reid kind of side-eyes the trans lady whilst Piers is listing off all these genders. And this obviously makes her uncomfortable, as immediately after he stops, or in fact, I don't even think he gets the chance to stop, she kind of jumps in there and says, by the way, I know you kind of side-eyed me there, but this has got fuck all to do with me. Do you know what I mean? Like...
Neutroids. Intergender.
I have to say,
do you know what they mean?
I have no idea what they mean, and I'm part.
Right. Well,
I'm
luckily we have the world expert
community.
here. What is any of this?
Again, trying to distance herself from the non-binary people. And I think there's a good reason for that. Like I said earlier, the whole binary transition thing is a long and drawn-out and painful and horrible process. That's even when you start it. You have as many years as you've been alive living in the wrong body to deal with first before you even get to that point. I'm assuming a lot here. I don't know, maybe it's like pregnancy. Maybe some people find it really easy, but somehow I doubt that. So you've got these people who... You've got these binary trans people who are already in this almost pit of despair, trying to get through this chapter in their life so they can be who they want to be and continue the rest of their life. And whilst they're in this pit, they are now being piled in with all the rest of the gender spectrum. So the issue that binary trans people have here is that they're being pulled in with all these other people in this non-binary spectrum, but they don't agree with these people. They are binary. They are, look, I was a bloke and I wanted to be a fucking woman. Or I was a woman and I really wanted to be a bloke. That's who I was inside. That's different. You can talk to these people and they can tell you their stories. They will tell you how horrible it was, and they can take you through that whole thing and how long and drawn out and painful it was, and etc. And it's fucked up, but it's real. It was a real experience. Whereas when you see or meet these non-binary folk, they just seem to be experimenting and just kind of going with a vibe. And not that I'm saying anything's wrong with that, it just doesn't seem the same thing as what these binary transgender people are going through. That's my opinion. I'm sure they're getting showered with shit. Do you know what I mean? Just saying, like, you're all morons, you're all this, that, and the other, or just online abuse, which I don't agree with, by the way. Regardless of how wrong you are, you don't deserve to be abused. And these binary trans people are just being pulled in with that and just getting the same kind of shit rained down on them as well.
Look, don't ask me to list off.
What's a two-spirit person?
I think that's someone who identifies with their native background into their gender.
Do you not think this is just like a vibe?
Boom! Hit the fucking nail on the head there, my beautiful trans woman friend. It's a vibe. It's a fucking vibe. It's basically what I was saying earlier. They're just taking people's feelings, things they like, things they don't like, do you know what I mean, how they think, and they're trying to say that is their gender. And it's not. It's like she says, it's just their vibe. It's just kind of who they are as a person. There's other words to use for that. Do you know what I mean? That's their personality type. That's who they are. That's not their gender. Very well put there.
Vibe that somebody's having. Like when you tick a list, male or female, doing your passport or something, is this not just, this is just how they are? This is just a bit of a vibe.
Do you know what aporogender is?
And obviously here comes Piers again, like, sorry, you guys are having a civil discussion there. Can I just fucking squeeze in? What the fuck's upon agenda, you spastic?
No.
They're very sorry about it.
Even though you support what the BBC is doing. This, by the way, this is the public
Is that
broadcaster.
what it is?
No, I don't know.
Hang on. The public broadcaster paid for by us with the licence fee is now instructing children there are 100 genders they can identify as. You have come to defend it, and you don't know what half of these are.
But hang on, Piers, ignorance isn't a defence.
You're the ignorant one, and you're the one defending it.
Ooh, sorry, Benjamin, you walked right into that one.
Well, Piers, you're the one that doesn't know what it is as well, of course.
I'm about to tell you.
Do you know what?
Apologender is a fairly new word stemming from the Greek apor, meaning separate. Can you explain that to me? What does that mean?
Well, that means that someone identifies differently to you.
Ooh. Kind of lost it there a little bit. So yeah, Piers is on his little rant, finds one of these random genders, which makes no sense, and he's like, boom, dickhead, what does this mean? And I get it, Piers is being very confrontational right now, but what would be best for Benjamin right now is if he had answers to these questions. I mean, he's literally came onto this channel to address something that I'm sure is worrying a lot of people, a lot of parents be super uncomfortable thinking their kids are going to school and being taught that there are 100 different genders. I mean, learn the fucking alphabet first. There's 26 of those and they struggle with most of that. But sadly, Benjamin doesn't have answers for these questions. Do you know what I mean? Even when they're asked sarcastically, the way to stay on top is to know the fucking answers. Do you know what I mean? Just, be there. He is the professional. He's the guy that says, I'm going to come on here and explain this 100 gender thing to you, right? So ask me anything you like. And then it's like, well, what does this particular gender mean?
Well, that means that someone identifies differently to you.
But then Benjamin loses it slightly by slipping into his angry, liberal persona, and he bites back at Piers. Instead of answering the question, he says, well, it's obviously something you don't understand, isn't it? We've already established that he doesn't understand it. That's why he's asking you. Please don't do this to me, Benjamin. I don't like to side with Piers Morgan.
For us to get our heads around 100 different gender identities, and I think Nicole makes a really good point. It actually is about personality,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's just their thing. If I was sat in... I mean, I spent my whole childhood watching The Animals of Farthing Wood. You know, you're impressionable. You know, you've got to be careful.
But you didn't
think I was a
identify...
No, but I thought I was a squirrel. I thought I was going to grow up and be surrounded in a tree, surrounded by nuts. You know,
Benjamin, what is neutrois?
Benjamin, what's neutrois? I believe it's pronounced neutrois.
Do you know any of them?
I need
Well, I
to
know some
know
of them,
what...
yeah. But look, here's my
Mate,
point.
no offence, you
No,
come
no,
on
no.
national television to defend the BBC, telling kids there are 100 genders. I'm now reading out a number of these 100 genders. A, you've never heard of them. B, you've no idea what they are. But C, you want to encourage the
Hang on.
BBC to instruct our kids that they should be one of these genders.
But that isn't the point. The fact is...
that is the point.
So Morgan basically just kind of quietens down a little bit, and as an adult, and kind of what he should have done in the first place, just kind of lays down the point that he's trying to make here. I've rattled off a few of these genders in a very aggressive way, but nonetheless, I've rattled off a few of these genders, and you haven't been able to answer any of them. That's kind of the point. And then Benjamin retorts with, that's not the point.
The fact is that people identify in different ways. And when you get bogged down by the idea that children might know that they're different, that they might be helped to understand why they're different, that the teachers teaching them might be prepared with the apparatus to explain it to them, that is a good thing.
See, that worries me, what he just said there. Sometimes kids feel like they're different, and they want to be able to explain it when they feel different, and the teachers need to know the language and the words to use when they feel different. A lot of people and a lot of fucking children feel different. Do you know what I mean? They could have some sort of mental issues. There's any number of mental issues that kids can suffer from, a lot of which may need genuine psychiatric help, or should at least be kind of monitored. The way to go about a child feeling different isn't to go, right, so... do you like potatoes? No. Do you like helicopters? No, interesting. Are you a Native American? You might be getting somewhere. I'm not saying kids don't feel different or feel weird or have mental issues. What I'm saying is these things should be looked at by a care professional, by a medical professional. It shouldn't be a teacher's job to realise a kid's feeling different and then assign them one of the 100 genders available. That's not gender.
100
I think
different
the
ways.
parent, surely.
Do you know what neutroids is?
You might find it strange and unusual, and we might not be able to answer what every one of the 100 is. But that doesn't mean
doesn't
that
know
they
any
don't
of them.
exist. Well, I suspect you picked the
No,
two most...
I'm literally,
I haven't heard of
there's an
how
A to B
it's
list, I'm just picking them at random.
You have things like-
So far I've picked 3 and you have no idea what they are. Do you know what neutroids is?
Tell me.
Well, have a stab.
Well, okay, I don't know.
Imagine you're a 9-year-old kid and the BBC's told you to be one of these, so what's neutroids?
Well, no, that's not what would happen. What would happen is the kid would say how they're feeling.
Here's what
and the
neutroids
teacher-
is.
The
So
teacher might
you want to tell
help
them,
explain
have
it
you got
to
any kids?
No, I don't.
Okay, I've got 4 kids.
Again, we've gone back to the not even letting the guy say his point, just talking over the top of him. Again, whether you think someone's right or wrong, this is not how to debate.
People get on with it. Let people
Express
have their
their
own vibe. I
personalities.
keep saying vibe. I'm not a...
What is
vibe
wrong with
girl.
just being male, female or trans?
And just have your
That's
personality.
it. In other words, 3 things. You're male or female, or you identify as something else, right? Something else, right?
Even Piers shot himself in the foot there by saying, you identify as male or female or, oh fuck, there's a transsexual there, or something else. He is also completely missing the point. The point that trans lady was trying to make before is that, yeah, she only wants to be identified as female. Do you know what I mean? Just because people transition from male to female doesn't mean there's a third gender. If anything, it would be a temporary thing. Do you know what I mean? As you are transitioning from male to female, until you felt you'd reached a point where you were female enough to tell people you were female, or however that works inside your head, whatever makes you comfortable. But no, it still fucks up by being, well, you're either male, or you're female, or you're whatever she is. Which then gives Benjamin the opportunity to slide in, but there are lots of in-betweens, you see? Ba 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 ba.
But there are
What we
lots of
don't do
something
is have
else's.
these
That's the
100
thing.
ridiculous terms that even you, the world expert on gender, has no idea what any of them are.
And I consider
right?
myself to be an expert through experience on transition.
And you've never heard of half of
I don't have a
these.
clue.
I mean, I feel a bit like Diane Abbott being tested on all these details here. I'm not saying that I can know
actually, you
all
sound a bit like Diane Abbott because she never knows what she's talking about either.
Sorry, Benji, you kind of walked into that one again.
I think the truth is that kids identify in different ways. And the real thing that we should be focused on here...
What's the job of a parent and a school teacher with a child, do you
It's
think?
to make them feel comfortable in who they are.
Or
And
to
do you know
offer
what?
them... Or
Here's-
Benjamin, let me throw you something at you. Having been a parent...
Again, stop interrupting the guy. He was midway through a fucking point there and you just...
And I believe the job of a parent is actually to navigate them through life, which is difficult, but actually to keep things relatively simple. Most kids will reach a stage where, just to be mischievous...
Now Piers and the female guest are basically just describing how to raise a child in a very kind of gingerly put way. They're kind of nervous that they're going to upset someone by just explaining normal things. Piers says, raising a child is difficult, but all you've got to do is try and kind of teach them the good ways in the most simplistic way possible, which is not bad advice, to be fair. Kids are pretty dumb. You know what I mean? They start off dumb. They get smarter and smarter. So keep it simple and then get more and more complex.
And to play up a bit, they'll all say, Dad, I'm neutroids today, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't think you do that. You
That's
can't-
exactly what kids do, mate. I'm telling you, BBC,
Raise your child
they
in a
will do
house
it.
where they know they can talk to you if they feel differently, and there are things that we can do to help them adapt in life.
Let's
The
not
whole
confuse
world
them,
shouldn't
Benjamin.
adapt for
100.
somebody's
actually-
personality.
You
Hang
don't
on.
agree that there are 100
Let me get a word
gender
here.
identities.
Credit where credit's due, this kid is doing very well to remain calm. In the context of a fair debate, I would have drop-kicked all these fuckers in the face by now.
But I feel insulted and offended that you're calling me a cis man when I'm actually a man.
Well,
You see how
maybe
this
you're
works?
offended. But look,
when you
the
get into
idea
the,
you can't
when you get into the
convince someone
offence
of this.
business, right? When you get into the offence business where everyone is offended by all this terminology, right? Actually, I'm offended by you calling me a cis man.
I think it gives people a sense of who they are, and I don't accept you can promote this. You know, I learned about World War II for several years at school, but I'm yet to think invading Poland is a good idea.
Did the 100 gender man just make a Hitler joke? Argument over? You lose?
You can't convince someone.
Can I identify?
identity.
Can I
happening
identify?
again.
There's a penguin at the Sea Life Aquarium in London that is currently being reared gender neutral. apparently has gay parents, right?
2 mums.
I
All
have
sounds-
nothing to say on this subject.
Get me the fuck away from this subject. Don't look at me. I bet at this point she's just worried about being in the screenshot with 100 genders written underneath her.
Well, hang on. Let
That's
me just say this.
Because it's insane.
Can I,
This is all yours.
under this new world of self-identification, can, as I did earlier, now identify as a two-spirit neutroid penguin?
Well, you're not a penguin because.
And how
they
dare
don't-
you?
People don't
How
identify
dare
as
you tell me I
penguins.
can't identify as that? How dare you offend
Well,
me?
you can maybe Piers the
You
penguin.
see how it works, Benjamin?
But
Look,
here's-
there I am. That's me as a
Can you
penguin.
see how it gets
to
to
go and
a
have a
point
word
where
with your
people
doctor.
can make it ridiculous?
Well, only if they want to make it ridiculous. You know, common sense says that these are different.
Common
genders.
sense, Benjamin.
Different-
Common sense!
In the last 2 or 3 decades, we've had a large number of people transgendering, quite rightly, as our wonderful guest has today.
Did you hear that, lady? We have a bunch of people transgendering, like our wonderful experiment, our wonderful guest over here. Shit, did you hear that? 1, it is called transitioning. 2, she has already asked you not to refer to her as a transgender person. 3, please stop.
And they have my complete respect. What this does is actually makes, I think, people who have transgendered, it makes them figures of fun. It exposes them to needless mockery.
They have my complete respect. But what I think this does is it makes the transgendered people look like total fucking...
It makes the whole thing look ridiculous.
Only if you mock
And actually, the real victims tend to be people who have transgendered and have to put up with this nonsense.
Now, what I think Piers is trying to say here is essentially what I was trying to say, just in a lot less of a conscientious way, I guess.
No, I think that's a defence of being ignorant. The fact that people
You're
might
an
mock
ignorant
them
person
teaches
here.
you with people that
You came on to defend 100 genders. You don't know what I'm
Yeah, when I went to school, my teachers couldn't believe there was more than one sexuality. They're incapable of dealing with when I came out as gay as a teenager.
Right.
We've gone on a journey. We're making progress.
How many sexualities do you think there are?
Well, don't ask me to.
What's that?
Well, I'm gay. There's bisexual. There's pansexual. There's all sorts
How many
of
others?
sexualities. Do you have an answer yourself?
No, tell me.
Well, no, because I'm not. I'm not. You know,
There are 100?
I'm not going to.
Can you be a neutroid, transgender, gender non-conforming,
It's a basic fact of
bisexual? I don't know.
You either love your own sex, or you love the opposite sex, or you like a bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, there's already no rules together, isn't it?
You can be attracted to more than one gender.
This
So then
takes us
it
into
gets-
the.
You could be attracted to the 100 genders, is your point. So there's probably 100 different sexualities now.
Well, then you'd be
Because if I'm like bizarrely attracted to neutroid people,
That was just kind of a bit of a fray, just words being thrown about, no real points being made.
right? Which I didn't know I was, but maybe I am. Maybe if there were 100 neutroids people here now, I would suddenly feel sexually attracted to them.
Oh
Does
my
that-
goodness, it's
well,
all
does that-
getting ridiculous.
Does that make me a cis male neutroids
Lover.
illity or something? What is
I
it?
have no idea what you just said.
It won't make you pansexual because that's when you're attracted to someone regardless of
Which
how they
is
necessarily
fine, but we
identify.
don't all have to adapt to that. We just let people get on with their business.
Okay.
Let's just let people.
So once again, Piers is fucking hammering on, but he's kind of, lady, he's kind of making points. The point he makes is that what if I'm sexually attracted to one of your 100 genders? Do I then become a new sexuality? To which Benjamin kind of has an answer, but yeah, he's asking all the awkward questions, and this kind of works in Piers' favour because I think he has the brain of a child. He's asking all the awkward questions that a child would ask. And if you're putting this into schools, then children are going to ask these stupid questions. What do you expect? You can't just tell them to shut up. Well, if you don't know the answer, then you're a bit of a bigot, and you need to learn the answer, don't you? It's like, well, yes, sir. What's the answer? But fuck you. Read a book.
People get on with their business.
Yeah.
The BBC told us this is an informed professional view from a qualified teacher who is a personal, social, health and economic education specialist. Her opinion is based on her own extensive research and many conversations with young LGBTQ people. She is not saying these are medical definitions of gender, but is talking about how people identify.
Or to put it another way, she's talking complete cobblers.
Well done, Piers. What a way to close it. Fucking classy as ever. I wanna fly away. So yeah, a little kind of disclaimer at the end there for just to let everyone know that these aren't scientific definitions. These are the work of some lady who may have a doctorate who specialises in children and social care or something. There was a lot of words there, but yeah. So yeah, like I feel like I've learnt a fair bit. Enough at least to surmise, if you'll indulge me. The first point, and the most prominent and definite point that I've learnt from my research today, is that there's a gap between these people and the non-binary people. I understand that the lady guest on this particular show is but one example, and she was saying some very non-liberal things there as well, which is kind of, I wonder if she got some backlash for the things she was saying there, even though they were completely innocent and completely fair, in my opinion. So then we have fucking school right behind me. Be quiet, I'm trying to masturbate. I don't know if it's all binary trans people feel this way, and are against, or not against, but certainly don't identify in the same way as the non-binary folk do. I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to do a bit more research on that. If you are trans and you happen to see this video, or if you have transitioned, please let me know. Do you support this non-binary discussion, or would you rather it go away like it sounds like this woman would? I'm not saying there aren't 100 different ways to define how you feel. I am saying that that feeling isn't automatically your gender. I don't even know why they've picked gender. It could have been anything. Do you know what I mean? Why does it affect your gender? That's the part that just doesn't add up. Logically, scientifically, socially, none of it makes sense. And secondly, I kind of want to touch on the whole non-binary thing as a subject. So I'm putting in my opinion, very liberal head on here and saying that you need to get a dedicated group of people, preferably scientists or people in the medical profession. You need to get these people to come up with some definite articles, some definite descriptions, and some definite parameters to what you are trying to explain. Perhaps if it was less diluted, perhaps if there was 5 terms that you could use, people might be able to latch onto that, and even if they don't agree with it, learn enough to be respectful to everyone else. But asking someone to try and learn 100 terms, even if they believe in it, it's difficult. That is evidenced by Benjamin. He was literally the man there arguing for having this education in schools, and he couldn't even list these genders. He didn't know what some of the ones Piers was saying was. So if it's hard for him to learn, someone who believes in this and fully supports this, then how hard is it going to be for someone who doesn't believe in it? Do you know what I mean? Even if they were forced to be polite, how difficult is that going to be for them? And then on the other side, to the people who are identifying as non-binary, how offended are you allowed to be if someone gets it wrong? Do you know what I mean? When you add the difficulty of this, the difficulty of trying to learn all these terms and all these descriptions, how many times are people allowed to get it wrong before you're allowed to be triggered, before you're allowed to be offended? Do you know what I mean? Is it 5 times? Is it 10? Give them 10%? Do you know what I mean? Do we need to just start going around and beginning every single conversation we have with, what do you identify as? Or what gender do you identify as? And then asking what pronoun you want to go along with that. Because that will just make life more awkward. Life is about surviving and making things more simple and easy to live with, and just making life less of a hassle. This is just too complicated for anybody to attempt to learn, especially when nobody really believes in it, and there is no scientific evidence to prove that non-binary is a real thing. Is it even a real thing, or is it just a notion? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, and I am genuinely looking at this with a complete open mind here. If any of this made sense to me, if any of Benjamin's arguments resonated with me, then I would say so. I'm honest, I'm open like that. But sadly they didn't. The lady guest's points all resonated with me. And she is someone who has transitioned. So you can't call me a fucking bigot. I'm all for her. I'm glad that she's managed to get to a point in her life where she's happy now, or accepts herself now. So yeah, if you're really serious about pushing this, you need to simplify it, you need to have a dedicated team working on it, and you need to think of a reasonable, approachable, and plausible way to educate people about this. And it has to be snappy. It has to be simple enough for somebody to actually learn. It can't be as difficult as learning fucking Mandarin, because people don't have time for that. Do you know what I mean? Like, people are fucking busy. Surviving these days as a working class person is as hard as it's ever fucking been. So I was going through the fucking plethora of day-to-day challenges. You can't force what is practically like learning another language onto someone. Do you know what I mean? It's just not, it's not fair on anybody. And to say that it's not fair to not be fair because all these people have these 100 different genders and it's not fair for those people, I'm sorry, I just don't accept that. So yeah, anyway, I think I'm just going to have to leave it there and see what happens. I would love for this to turn into a discussion if people want to comment below with their experiences, with any information I don't have, any facts that you want to give me. And I like facts to be facts. I won't just take anything written on the internet as a fact. I love to be proven wrong. It's a fetish of mine. Maybe I'm proven wrong, Jen. If you feel the need to comment horrible things to me, then do it, I guess. It'll give me an insight onto where your thought pattern is coming from, at least. So go for it. It's all research, in my opinion. If you are non-binary and you wish to comment and try and explain it to me or try and make me see your point of view, please do. I will not be offensive to any of you. If I don't agree with you, that's fine. I won't mock you. And I'm sure this is essentially hopeless, but if you are going to go into the comments, please don't mock anybody else for having their opinion either. This isn't a place for people to bully each other. I wanted this video to be completely down the middle. I'm not on anybody's side here. Yeah, it was just a bit of a research project. And to help further my research, let's talk. Hopefully I don't just get berated by everybody in the comments, but I'm sure I will. It'll be nice to see how that feels. So yeah, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and continue the discussion. I shall see you on the next one. Peace.